Sophie was carefully exploring her grandmother's attic, stepping over boxes and crates piled high with dusty old things. The air was musty, and she tried her best to dodge the cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. Suddenly, she tripped over a stack of magazines, and as she caught her balance, she noticed something strange. In the corner of the attic, behind an old mirror, there was a faint, flickering light. "What's that?" she muttered, feeling both curious and a little nervous. Her cousin Ethan showed up beside her, fiddling with his oversized cap. "Maybe it's a secret passage," he said with a nervous laugh, though his eyes were wide with worry. Sophie shot him a look, raising an eyebrow. "You always come up with the creepiest ideas," she teased, "but now we have to check it out." Taking a deep breath, she pushed the dusty mirror, and to her surprise, it moved easily, revealing a narrow wooden staircase that led down into darkness. They exchanged a nervous glance. "Are we really doing this?" Ethan whispered, clearly unsure. Sophie nodded, her curiosity winning over her fear. "Of course, we can't just ignore it now." She stepped onto the first stair, her flashlight barely cutting through the darkness below. Ethan hesitated before following her, the old wood creaking under their feet. "If this ends badly, I'm blaming you," he muttered. The stairs led them into a low-ceilinged room that looked like it had been untouched for years. It was dimly lit by an old light bulb, flickering as though it might go out at any second. The room was filled with old trunks and furniture covered in sheets. Ethan shivered as he looked around. "This place feels weird, like we shouldn't be here," he whispered. Sophie picked up a glass jar from a shelf. It was filled with a dark liquid and something inside it shifted. She quickly put it down, her heart racing. In the corner, they noticed another door. It wasn't covered in dust like everything else, and it was slightly open, with a faint, eerie glow coming from behind it. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you see that light? It doesn't look right, Sophie." She nodded, a shiver running down her back. "We have to see what it is. We've come this far." Ethan hesitated, but then watched as Sophie pushed the door open. It let out a long, groaning creak, and beyond it was something totally unexpected. A strange greenhouse. It looked nothing like any greenhouse they had seen before. The plants were glowing in weird colours, green, blue, and even gold, and some of them seemed to move, like they were alive. Sophie stared, her voice barely a whisper. "This is incredible." Ethan noticed a journal left open on a table in the corner. The writing on the pages seemed to change and move, glowing with a soft light. He reached out and touched it, and suddenly the room felt colder. They both heard a whisper, like voices coming from the walls. Ethan's eyes widened. "Sophie, I don't think we're alone," he said, his voice shaky. Sophie looked around, her flashlight flickering, the shadows seeming to grow and stretch toward them. Panic set in. "We need to get out of here," she shouted, her voice cracking. Ethan spotted another door behind a big plant with twisting vines. "Over there," he said, and they ran for it, pushing their way through as the vines seemed to reach for them. They finally made it out, stumbling back into the attic, gasping for breath. The mirror swung back into place behind them, and the strange light vanished. They stood there for a moment, their hearts pounding, until they heard their grandmother calling from downstairs. "What are you two doing up there?" Sophie looked back at the mirror, and something had changed. This time, a soft, warm light was glowing from behind it. Not scary, almost welcoming. Ethan saw it too, and his fear started to fade. "Should we try again?" he asked, sounding a bit more confident now. Sophie nodded, feeling calmer. They moved the mirror aside again, and the stairs were there, but now they didn't look so frightening. They went back down, still cautious, but feeling hopeful. This time, the underground room felt different. The old lanterns came on, casting a warm light, like they were welcoming them. The glowing plants in the greenhouse didn't seem threatening anymore. They seemed almost happy to see them. Ethan reached out to one of the vines, and instead of feeling cold, it felt warm, curling around his hand gently. Sophie picked up the journal again, and the whispering voices sounded different too. Softer, like they were trying to tell her something good. She realized that the room wasn't trying to scare them away. It had just been waiting for the right people to find it. Ethan smiled, the fear gone from his face. I think this place likes us, Soph. It's not dangerous, it's just alive, and maybe a little lonely. Sophie nodded, feeling a connection to the strange underground garden. She touched a glowing leaf, and it pulsed warmly under her fingers. They decided this magical place was their special secret. They'd take care of it, learn its secrets, and explore it together. As they made their way back up to the attic, the door gently closed behind them, like it was promising they could come back any time. Their grandmother's voice called again, closer this time. They looked at each other and smiled. Just exploring, Grandma, Sophie called back, and they both knew that from now on, their adventures would have a new purpose. One filled with magic, wonder, and maybe a little bit of mystery. In the days that followed, Sophie and Ethan kept coming back. They learned about the glowing plants, took care of them, and listened to the whispers that seemed to tell them stories of the past. What they thought was something scary turned out to be something beautiful, and they knew that they had found a hidden wonder that belonged to them, a place full of magic and endless possibilities.